Okay, so what role do you think that structural racism and inherent bias has to play in those statistics?
Before I state my question, I just want to honor that we are all standing on the land that belongs to the Ojibwe Anishinaabe people.
Thank you for mentioning that. I meant to mention that at the beginning of my speech.
Yep.
But
Do I think men can give birth? I think that
yes or no question.
I think that a person who is assigned male at birth, I don't think they can give
Assigned
birth.
male at birth?
I don't think that the people who enter this country illegally are forced to do so.
A student waves her sociology degree in Ben Shapiro's face, thinking credentials trump facts. Shapiro's response: "The facts don't care about your degree." The audience erupts. We've collected the most satisfying moments when overconfident college students march up to microphones thinking they've got bulletproof arguments, only to get completely dismantled by activists who came prepared. The look on their faces when they realize their talking points aren't working is priceless. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. Ever notice how there's nothing more satisfying than watching someone who thinks they've got it all figured out suddenly hit a wall of logic they can't climb over?
I cited a number of statistics that show that they commit federal crimes at a significantly higher rate than native-born Americans. Yeah.
Before I state my question, I just want to honor that we are all standing on the land that belongs to the Ojibwe Anishinaabe people.
Thank you for mentioning that. I meant to mention that at the beginning of my speech.
Yep.
But
Gala transcribed and androgynous trans priests of Sumerian goddesses have been around and noted.
What I'm trying to get at is the fact that do you have any other further education in any of these topics or any of these fields of study?
That's exactly what happens when these activists face off against college students armed with nothing but rehearsed talking points and an unearned confidence. You can almost see the formula playing out in real time. A student approaches the microphone, smirking slightly, thinking they're about to score the ultimate gotcha moment. The activist listens patiently, sometimes even nodding along encouragingly. Then comes the moment that changes everything. A simple question that acts like a wrecking ball to the student's entire argument. Take Charlie Kirk's exchange with a student that left the entire audience in disbelief. The student had been going on about gender theory when Kirk hit them with what should have been the easiest softball question imaginable. Do you think men can give birth? What followed was painfully awkward. The student stumbled through a non-answer, hemming and hawing, while the audience gradually realized this person couldn't even define basic biology. The student's entire argument collapsed because they couldn't commit to either scientific reality or their ideological position. Michael Knowles pulled off a similar move when confronted by a student claiming that transgender identities were widely accepted throughout indigenous cultures. The student clearly thought this historical argument would be unassailable, until Knowles responded with the devastating counter, "You're pointing to civilizations that committed human sacrifice."
Okay, so what role do you think that structural racism and inherent bias has to play in those statistics?
I'm glad that you
Dakota, Northern Cheyenne, and they have been here for time immemorial, and so that leads into my question. So
There's no systemic American racist going down to El Salvador and saying, "You better get up and sneak into the United States."
Gay couples adopting and spreading this rhetoric that you talk about.
The student froze, suddenly realizing they'd accidentally argued that historical precedent doesn't automatically make something worth emulating in modern society. The audience could practically hear the gears grinding to a halt in the student's head. Matt Walsh might have delivered the most surgical takedown when a student was arguing that biological sex doesn't matter in healthcare. Walsh simply asked, if a biological male says they're having a miscarriage, would you check them?
I don't think that the people who enter this country illegally are forced to do so.
I'm going to ask you a question about that, but prior to that, I want to just state that for 5,000 years BC.
These things that you brought up tonight.
I know a lot more about all those others than lesbian dance theory.
And there's nobody in the United States who forces people who come here illegally.
The student's face went through a journey from confidence to confusion to the slow realization that their entire position had just been dismantled by a hypothetical emergency room scenario. Sometimes reality is the ultimate trap question. Even academic credentials couldn't save one particularly smug student from Ben Shapiro's logical trap, after the student had spent nearly a minute boasting about winning some prestigious math award, as if that somehow made them an authority on gender psychology. Shapiro calmly pointed out that this mathematical genius couldn't even correctly cite the DSM-5 that Shapiro had referenced moments earlier. The deflation was instant. All those academic accolades meant nothing when basic reading comprehension failed. And then there's Candace Owens, who showed sometimes the best response isn't engaging at all when faced with a non-binary student launching into what promised to be a circular argument about their identity. Owens simply responded with a dismissive, "Congratulations, sweetheart," that had the audience howling. Sometimes not playing the game is the ultimate power move.
Do I think men can give birth? I think that
yes or no question.
I think that a person who is assigned male at birth, I don't think they
Assigned
can give birth.
male at birth?
I don't need a 7-year degree in sociology. No bullshit when I hear it.
We're talking about the expansion of definition. So right now they've expanded the definition of woman.
You make the statement that transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely, and so
What makes these moments so effective isn't just the verbal sparring, it's watching someone's entire worldview hit a reality check in real time. These students walk up to the microphone thinking they're about to score points for their side, only to discover they've wandered into an intellectual minefield they're not equipped to navigate. The brilliance of these trap questions is that they force an impossible choice. Either abandon your position on the spot, humiliating, or double down on an obvious contradiction, even more humiliating. There's no third option, no linguistic escape hatch. That deer in headlights look isn't just embarrassment, it's cognitive dissonance happening live on stage.
I think that a person...
See, your evidence that college is a scam, my friend.
As far as if you want to take issue with the argument, I would urge you not to use the argument from authority, which is somebody has a PhD by their name, they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, is that you're not considered an expert in sociology, psychology, gender studies, lesbian dance theory.
Does this mean that the merch you sell supporting, nuclear families means that you support trans couples adopting?
What's truly fascinating is how simple most of these questions are. They don't require doctoral degrees or complex philosophical frameworks. They just require basic logic and a willingness to follow an argument to its natural conclusion, something these students apparently never did before grabbing the microphone. And that's really what makes these moments so powerful. As Ben Shapiro perfectly put it, I don't need a 7-year degree in sociology. Facts don't need a degree. These activists win exchanges not because they're playing semantic games, but because they're refusing to abandon reality for ideology. The true genius comes from their simplicity. Matt Walsh demonstrated this perfectly when he compared gender identity claims to someone claiming legs exist on a spectrum just because some people are born with one leg. It cuts through hours of academic theory with plain observable truth. Michael Knowles nailed it when he said affirming someone's identity can actually be harmful. I think they're lying to you, and I think it's very disrespectful, and I think it will not lead to your flourishing. Listen, sometimes the kindest response isn't validation, it's honesty.